time to ban booze at the airport to cut crime and rowdiness. It's been revealed that police in Scotland were called out to thousands of incidents last year by the Daily Record paper, with drunken passengers partly to blame for a rise in crime. It's a familiar sight at airports in the UK. Crowds of people waiting for their flights in the pub. Earlier this year, Ryanair called for a limit on how many drinks people should be able to buy before they get on a plane. But is it time to just make it inaccessible? What about on the plane itself? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Give us a ring. Carole, are you a breakfast drinker?
No. I mean, I hope they never ban a drink on a plane, because for me, it's just a joy to get on a plane, order one of those little bottles of Prosecco. That's my holiday started. However, I do think it odd when I go into airports and I find people at 7 o'clock in the morning ordering a pint of lager. I think that's weird. There was a guy called Harry Wallop did a fantastic piece in the Mail recently where he said he got into a Wetherspoons pub in Stansted, and at 3:30 a.m. they were already doing lager and Pinot Grigios. I find that weird. I find it a bit odd. But I think O'Leary and Ryanair, who's making a big fuss about it recently and saying that flying has become impossible because of people getting drunk. I swear to God, in all my years of flying, I have never seen anyone out of control. I've seen people a little bit tipsy. I
wonder what they're like on the plane, though, afterwards. Anyway, we're gonna have to take a break there. We'll hear what Radzi and the rest of you think about this after the break. Don't go anywhere. 0207 862 2222. Have you had a breakfast pint? Have you been on a stag weekend, perhaps? Started early?
So I've been on a few stag weekends, and it's partly because of that I think we shouldn't be allowed drinking in airports and on flights.
Tell me what happened.
So, well, I'll give you another story. So one is a friend of mine works for cabin crew, and I messaged her knowing I was coming on the show, and I said, do you ever see it kick off on flights because of booze? And her quote was, all the time. And so I did a little bit of research into this. So Unite, the union, had a survey with cabin crew. Over 4,000 people were surveyed. 87% had witnessed drunken passengers. Over 50% have experienced abuse. Over a quarter have observed behaviour that's threatened flight safety. So to me, this isn't just an idea. It's not just a bit of fun. It can be a lot of fun, but actually we're talking about redirected flights. We're talking about cost to other passengers, and also scary situations. What I was going to mention is a couple of years ago, dated a wonderful human. She was living in Budapest. So I'd go from Luton to Budapest a lot, and I'd see a lot of stag do's on planes, both versions of the journey. And when it kicks off, cabin crew aren't security. There are no bouncers up there. So then you've got a dilemma. Do I, for example, as a bloke, step in, or is that wrong? And if I get into an altercation, am I now going to be arrested for that? So there's a lot going on in that dynamic of booze.
It does seem bizarre, Carole, that, you know, pubs typically open at 12 o'clock. So that's out in the world where there is little at stake, if you like. But in an airport where you're about to get on a plane, where safety is absolutely utmost, and you have, in the airport, you know, people with guns walking around, armed police walking around. There's a lot at stake. Of all the places to start drinking early, that feels like the stupidest one.
No, I understand that, it does. But how are you ever going to... I mean, I think O'Leary suggested that you would have a 2-drink maximum in the airport. Who's going to police that? No one's... And the thing is, all those establishments in the airport, they're businesses, they're big businesses. They need to make money. They want to open at 3 o'clock in the morning and be serving you beer. Of course they do.
Have you seen their prices?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, but people are prepared to do it because they're going on holiday. I mean, I have been lucky enough never to be on a plane where there's a stag do going on. But generally, I don't see rowdy behaviour. I see people who are a bit leery. I once saw a man sitting next to me. You know those little bottles of wine? I counted, he did 10 on one journey. But he was perfectly quiet and perfectly nice, and he didn't cause any trouble, and he wasn't rude to the cabin crew. I feel very sorry for there was that terrible case recently of that bloke, what was he called? Salman Ifkar or something. He just got jailed for 15 months. He threatened to kill and gang rape a stewardess who dared to tell him to sit down and stop taking drink from our trolley. That's outrageous. The guy should have got 5 years in jail, not 15 months, because he'd be out in 6. So,
but that problem starts in the airport, doesn't it? The drinking in the airport, there's no one monitoring and saying to the airline, you know how much he's had,
Who's going to monitor
it? We'd have said the same thing about smoking many moons ago, and smoking's no longer allowed on flights.
Well,
but who can count how many drinks you've had?
Well, because, I mean, if I buy a Toblerone, I have to show my boarding pass usually. So if I buy a drink, I hand in my boarding pass, it gets a stamp on it, 2 stamps, that's me done.
What do you mean the stamp? I don't understand.
Just like if I was having a coffee or something, it was a
I see
loyalty
what you
card.
mean. Oh, okay,
so 2 stamps on my passport, you've got 2 stamps,
Yeah,
we're not going any further.
I mean, that could work. I mean, that absolutely could work. But I've got to tell you, have you been on a plane where you've seen outrageous behaviour?
Actually, yeah, I have, yeah.
'Cause I haven't.
Define outrageous, I'm not sure
Well,
if, you know...
fighting,
they're not-
scrapping, shouting.
Unfortunate. So not fighting per se, but everything up until including, and especially treatment and dialogue with cabin crew that I just think is disrespectful, presumptuous. Give me this. I want another drink. I can do what I want to. This is, and that's the stuff where I think this isn't
But then
fair.
when you are on holiday, and
Yep.
maybe you get 2 weeks in the sun every year, Rads, and you just want to start that holiday in the right mood,
Yes.
isn't it? Like placing too many rules on people at that stage does feel harsh.
I totally agree, it does feel harsh, but in the same way as we can't do a few Class A's on the plane just because I want to kick off the holiday in the right way, there has to be a line drawn somewhere. And for me, it's as much as I would like to make it fun for everyone, I really do care about the cabin crew who don't have security.
How do you monitor? Because what O'Leary talked about that day when he talked about not the drunks on the plane, what wasn't quoted very often in the papers at the time was he talked about the problem of cocaine on planes, cocaine combined with drugs. You can't test people for cocaine. You're not going to test them to see if they've had drugs.
But there's only so many people who will take cocaine before going on a plane, whereas it feels like we have normalised the idea of drinking before you get on a flight. And you see people doing it, you think, actually, I quite fancy it.
Yeah, well, you do. Because
now it's OK.
Because you're in a holiday mood. But we can't be too nanny state-ish about everything. We can't ban everything. It's, you know, I'd be devastated if I couldn't have a little glass of Prosecco on the plane going on my holiday. I would. And I think that 90% of the people are like me. They just want a little drink to start their holiday.
But the
it's not
argument
because you want to get drunk.
I could then say, but I just want to have a nice cigarette or a cigar on a plane to kick off my holiday in the right way.
We know that's not allowed.
Do you think this is competitive drinking? Do you think that's what's happening? If you've got a group of guys who are going on a golf tour, a stag weekend or something like that, then it starts early to try and, you know, to escalate it, if you like.
Yeah, the expectation is we're going to see off as many pints as possible. We're going to see who gets the drunkest. Obviously, on a stag do it, so we're going to get the stag as drunk as possible, humiliate him, etc. And that's fine in a certain setting, but especially not when kids are around, because that also affects the language that gets used and the kinds of behaviour and the volume of the behaviour. And so it makes it a very appealing environment, especially if you've got youngsters around with young ears.
You would ban it for everyone because of a few idiots.
But I don't think it's a few, actually. I think it's...
Well, I think it is a few. I mean, you quoted some figures before, but I would really like to know how often those incidents occur and what damage they've caused, whether they've been arrested when they got off the plane. I mean...
Well, I'll go back to...
We hear about it when it happens, and we don't hear about it that much.
Well, we don't hear about it, probably because it isn't making news, probably because it's been normalised, probably because we're allowing it.
Punch on a plane is not normalised.
Well, you can't have kids in many pubs. Many pubs won't accept kids at all in the environment. I mean, Radzi's right. This is a family environment. For a lot of people, they have no choice but to be close to the pub.
Come on.
And when this behaviour spills out,
I have to bite my
my
tongue in public so often when I hear parents in the supermarket outside swearing around their kids, terrible language around their kids, and my husband has to pull me back because I want to tell them to stop it. But that happens everywhere. It doesn't just happen on a plane.
Okay,
that's irresponsible, bad parents who are doing that.
Let's take a call. Louise is in Northamptonshire. Is it something you've witnessed, Louise? Bad behaviour, rowdiness in an airport after drinking?
Yes, I was on a flight a couple of weeks ago from Cyprus. I came from Cyprus and there was a guy on the flight with his family who was abusive. So the flight was diverted to Munich airport so he could be offloaded. The police came off and offloaded the passenger. Then we were told the airport was closed, so we had to stay on the flight, on the plane for about an hour.
And had he been drinking before he got on the plane, Louise?
I'm guessing he must have been because he was served a couple of drinks on the flight. And then the attendant refused to serve him anymore, and he became abusive.
So the idea then is that a couple of drinks on the flight, as we've said here, as Carole said, you know, this is kind of acceptable. But what they didn't realise on the flight was how much he'd had before that point.
Well, I think he was obviously over the limit when he got on the flight because he was abusive to his family, who he was with.
So they could have stopped it at that point. They could have said, there's no way you're getting on this flight. And that would have prevented all this heartache and disruption for you. Oh,
absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
So
because we were delayed by 13 hours at that airport.
Wow.
And we've got no compensation because it was an unplanned event or whatever they call it. So we got no money or anything for it. We had to 13 hours.
OK, I would challenge that, Louise.
Oh, me too, yeah.
If I would, because this is not an act of God, this is an act of an idiot. So
Why
I would go back...
Why did they have to keep Louise for 13 hours? Why couldn't they process the idiot and get him out of the way?
Well, that's... who
It's
knows?
outrageous.
Louise, would you back the idea... Go on, carry on.
Sorry, I was going to say that the chap was taken off the flight, but because the airport was closed, so we had to wait until they could restaff the aircraft.
OK.
Because we couldn't go with the same pilot.
Louise, would you back shutting down the pubs to prevent this sort of thing? Obviously, what you've been through has been a terrible pain.
Well, I think most people can drink, OK, but if they're obviously drunk when they get on, they shouldn't be allowed on, should they?
And that's just brilliant. That's just the rules we've got currently. That's not changing anything. You think they just should have been enforced a little bit more strictly?
Yes, definitely.
OK. Thank you so much for your call, Louise. Really on the point, that one, on the nose. We're going to move on now, though.